In our last episode, we finally made it inside Vault City, only to learn that we can't get inside their vault unless we become a Vault City citizen. Sure, there's this test we could pass, but the test was made to be impossible. But we do have another option. First Citizen Lynette told us that if we deal with the Gecko situation, we can become a Vault City citizen. She told us that the residents of Gecko somehow got a pre-war nuclear reactor working, but the nuclear reactor is poisoning and irradiating the drinking water of Vault City. We need to fix the problem. And then Captain Stark asked us to scout out the 8 sectors all around Gecko, as he doesn't have the resources to scout them out himself. And so we head northeast towards Gecko. We'll start with Captain Stark's task, traveling in a counterclockwise circle. We make it all the way around Gecko, but just as we're about to head back to Vault City...
Chosen, the spirits of our ancestors guide me to a world of dreams that I may touch thoughts. Our village suffers without the holy Gek. Your hands hold our lives as a father holds his children.
Hakunin reaches out to us with magic. The town is suffering. Every moment we waste makes it that much less likely that we'll get the Gek for the city. We've got to hurry up, so heading back to Vault City, we can head to the upper city, enter the corrections center, and tell the good news to Stark. You're back again, he says? You lost, or do you need something? We can tell him that we surveyed the area around Gecko, and he says good job. He then downloads the information onto his Pip-Boy, and he logs it into the patrol computers. This intelligence looks good, he says. Well done. Here's your payment, $300. But then he offers us a new job. I need someone to travel to NCR. Lately, I've been hearing reports that the Republic might be building up military strength. True or not, I need someone to plot a route to NCR and report back. When we confirm these instructions, just travel to NCR then come back, he says, yeah, that's all I need. I'm more interested in the route to get to NCR than the Republic itself. But I'll still need you to enter the city once you get there. All right, so we've got a new task. Track down the NCR. But let's stay focused here. We still gotta fix the situation at Gecko. So, heading to Gecko, we arrive in the middle of town. Just outside, we see a sign, keep out. Warning, radiation. We see a number of shacks around us. We'll start with the closest one to the entrance. Heading inside, we see someone whose skin has been very badly burnt. And we sadly can't talk to these guys. They just have random townsfolk dialogue. Stay away from Vault City. Those guys are a-holes. And they don't seem to mind if we take all their stuff. We can open the locker in the back of the room. Here we find some Nuka-Cola, some rope in a bag, and we can open his dresser, where we find 2 gecko pelts. When done, we can move out to explore the next house. Here we find a bit of a farm with more ghouls farming. Entering the farmhouse, we find it empty. There's some rat-away in the desk, some flares and money in the bookshelf. But that's it for the farmhouse. Heading north, we can inspect this outhouse. We find that it's occupied. Be nice while you're in town, says the guy. And then we can move into the large building. This is a bar called The Harp. The patrons are all musical. Let's sing a song, they say. What, are you too good to drink with us? And then we can talk to the barkeep. I'm Wooze, he says. What do you want? Booze, Wooze, we can say. You want a drink? Well, I've got our very own Gamma Gulp beer at $5 a bottle. And, for special occasions, our Rentgen rum at $12 a bottle. A Rentgen is a unit of ionizing radiation. It's named after William Conrad Röntgen, who discovered the X-ray. Yeah, I had to look that up so I could pronounce it. But we're feeling hospitable, so we can say, I want to buy a round of your fabulous Gamma Gulp beer for everyone here. It'll cost us $35, but we can say cost is no object, my good man. I'd like a round of drinks for everyone here, Wooze. And with that, we buy everyone a round. This beer is great. You're okay in my book, they say. Heading back to Wooze, we can try to talk to him. The patrons kept telling us to ask Wooze to tell us a story. When we ask him if he tells us stories, he says, oh, I've got this great story. It's really funny. You see, there's this head, right? And the Chosen One can say, a head? And Wooze says, yeah, it's a head, but it's not attached to a body. You see, it's been severed. The Chosen One can say, a severed head, I see. And this becomes entertaining when? And Wooze says, just hold on a moment. This severed head, you see, it's in hell? And It flies around there, in hell, and it runs into all kinds of famous people there. And the Chosen One can say, wait, a severed head is in hell, and it flies around doing what? Well, it's doing stuff, says Wooz. It's got things that it wants to do, or maybe things it's forced to do. The point is, it's doing stuff, there in hell. Oh God, I just can't stand it. And the Chosen One can interject, you kind of obsess about this, don't you? Were you and your mother close? Did you ever have problems with bedwetting? And Wooz says, no, you just don't understand. It's all about a severed head, get it? It's funny. How can you think about a severed head in hell of all places and not laugh? At this point, the Chosen One is at his wit's end. But so as not to alienate this guy, we can say, oh, I see. Why, yes, of course. That's very funny. I just can't contain my amusement, but enough enjoyment. Oh, my splitting sides. I need to ask you something. See, he says, I told you it was funny. Is there anything else you need? We can play Tragic the Garnering with him. And he says, are you dumb? He says that Tragic the Garnering is the most habit-forming thing since Jet. And we can say, what's Jet? And he says, Jet's a chem that comes from New Reno. Were you born yesterday, or are you just dumb? He really likes calling people dumb. We can then ask him to tell us more about Tragic the Garnering. And he says, well, Tragic the Garnering isn't just a game, it's an obsession. Not a cologne either. Some think that the way it changes a person's life is tragic, but they just don't understand. It's wonderful, he says. You should play. Just once. The first box of cards is free. A little something from me to you. And we can say, thanks. Hey, these look great. We tear the wrapping off the pack of cards, and the Chosen One says, I just love that smell. He says, now that you're one of us, would you like to play a game? We can say, sure, but he has to show us how. And Wooz says, it's simple, really. Even someone dumb can understand it. First, you build a play deck out of cards that you have, and then but then the Chosen One interrupts him. You say you deal to the third player unless it's Thursday? Okay, I think I've got it now. Let's play. With that, we play a game, and Wooz says, I won! Screw you! You're dumb. I have crushed you. Now I can build an even better deck with your cards. Well, that was exhausting, but we're not done. We can then ask Wooz to tell us about the place. And he says, well, there's not much to tell, really. Just a bunch of ghouls clinging tenaciously to the ass end of life. He says the name of this bar is Harp, named after a favorite hangout that he used to have before the war. He sees it as a reminder of times past. We can say before the war, that was a long time ago. And we learned that he was alive before the war. He says it sure was a long time ago. How do you think ghouls are made? You think some of us just get up one day and say to ourselves, gee, I wonder what it would be like to have my flesh rotting off of my body? And we can say, well then how do you make a ghoul? And he says, with silver bells and cockle shells and, boy, you are dumb, aren't you? Severe radiation. That's how. How do you think? You know, many bombs go boom, flash of light and heat, flesh burns off, but you don't quite die type severe radiation. Screw you very much for bringing back all those intensely painful memories, asshole. We're a town of leftovers, slightly overcooked leftovers. Man, this guy's a cheery fellow, and the Chosen One can be sarcastic. I prefer medium rare myself, we can say. But that pretty much exhausts our conversation options with Wooz. If we try to barter with him, all we find is a deck of Tragic the Garnering cards. Guy really loves his cards. With that, we can leave the Harp, thank God, and move across the street to the manager's office. Inside the manager's office, we find Harold.
Hello there, Smooth Skin. The name's Harold. I help keep this town running.
Smooth Skin? Why did you call me that?
You cut with the dull edge of the knife, don't you? You don't look like an orange peel left in the sun all day. Your skin's still soft and purty.
You just better not be getting any funny ideas about my soft skin.
Funny ideas? Oh, you mean like skinning you alive with a rusty, dull old knife and then grafting your still warm, wet, glistening, oh so soft skin over my crusty, rotten gook?
Yeah. That's exactly what I meant. Good call.
Well, you don't have anything to worry about. Can't find my knife.
Well, that's good. Hey, Harold, what you do here?
Whatever it takes to keep this place together. Better job on it than me.
This place is coming apart?
Well, sorta. Our atomic reactors are mighty sensitive. The people I got running it mean well, but, well, they are not the sharpest tools in the shed, if you know what I mean.
No, what do you mean?
Need a little time on the whetstone yourself, huh? I mean, they are not too bright. Here's an example. The other day, I get a report. On it, it says the main coolant valve should be shut down. That would have caused a meltdown. That would make the Grand Canyon look like a pig wallah.
Oh, that sounds bad.
Oh yeah, that would be bad. Now, I got things fixed up in time, but we came close to the end there. Whew. They need someone to watch out for them.
Well, good thing you're here to help him then.
Who'd have thought I'd be making things right? Although, if we don't get a hydroelectric magnetosphere regulator pretty damn quick, there is gonna be trouble.
Well, what the hell is a hydromagna whatever later?
Well, technically, it's a thingy.
Okay, what's it do?
Without a functional hydroelectric magnetosphere regulator, we are leaking radioactive coolant into the groundwater. Now that means anyone using that water is not going to need a nightlight to take a midnight piss. Also, we need more fuel because our power plant is not burning it very efficiently.
I see, so they're accidentally irradiating the groundwater. Well, maybe we can do something to help. Sounds bad, Harold. Where would you go to get a hydromagnetus something or other?
Well, I'm certain those ornery bastards in Vault City have one. Not that they'd share. Hell, even if we had one of those thingies, I'm not so certain Festus could install the dang thing.
Wait, Vault City has one? And they wouldn't give you the part? Even if it means that the groundwater won't be polluted anymore?
Well, they'd only help us if they thought it was in their own best interest to do so. Not much chance of that happening.
Well, you might be right. Still, if someone could convince them that they should help you...
They shoot ghouls on sight. Makes conversation a bit tricky.
Well, I wonder if someone else could tell them.
We need a hydroelectric magnetosphere regulator, and it needs to be installed soon, or we have got some real problems.
What happens if you don't get the part?
If we don't get it, you can bet those boneheads from Vault City will shut down our power plant permanently.
What will you do then?
Take dirt naps. Vault City doesn't play nice. They'll just come up here and kill all of us if we don't get that part. Well, at least I'll have a tree for a monument.
Yeah, about that. Is that a tree growing out of your head?
Jealous? His name's Herbert. I talk to him when I get lonely. Just kidding. His name's Bob.
Who do you buy your fuel from?
We get our fuel from the Broken Hills. That's a mining community some ways south.
You must know if there's something called a Garden of Eden creation kit here, right?
Garden of Eden creation kit? A Gecko, right? I seem to remember Vaults had those. Don't know where you'd find one today.
Is there some place I can resupply here?
Well, you might try talking to Woo's over in the Harp. You can't miss it. It's just across the way.
Yeah, been there. Had that lovely conversation. Thanks, Harold. So, looks like Harold needs a thermohydraulic something-erator. And that'll solve the problems for both cities. Vault City no longer has irradiated water. Gecko is no longer in danger of being wiped out by Vault City. But before we head back to Vault City to see if we can find one of the something or others, we can finish exploring Gecko. The bathroom near to Harold's shack is empty. Head north, we find another ghoul home. The containers are all empty except for the bookshelf in the bedroom. There we find some boxed foods and some jerky. When done, we can take the exit grid to the north to inspect the northern side of town. We see a shack directly in front of us. It's a survival/gear locker. The guy inside is nice enough. "Hello there," he says. "Percy Crump here, master merchant in this locality. But you can call me plain old Percy, yes you can. Heck, everybody does. Now what can I do for you?" When we ask him for town gossip, he says that there's not a lot going on in town. He heard Woos rooked some newbie out of a black orchard the other day. Heh heh he. Okay, so I guess a black orchard is some sort of Tragic the Garnering card. Anyhows, t'other than that, my friend Woody's done gone missing. We can ask him to tell us about Woody gone missing, and he says, well, you see, I had a friend named Old Woody. That Woody, he can sleep like nobody I ever did see. What's worse, he likes to travel. Really likes to kick up the dust, that one does. That ain't so much of a problem, he says, round here that is. But last I heard, Woody was gonna take a stroll over to the den. You know where the den is? And we say, yeah, we know where the den is, go on. And he says, well, anyhows, like I've been saying, that ain't so much of a problem round Gecko, but you see, people in other parts ain't so used to the way we look. So, we can say? And he says, can't you put two and two together? I'm worried that Woody might have taken himself a nap in the den. It's a long trip after all, and then they would have buried the poor cuss alive. I need someone to go look for him there. And we can say? And he says, well, I miss him. That's why. Percy then blinks moistly at us. Nothing like a moist blink. Oh, I see, he says. You want to know what's in it for you. And we can say, yeah, this is usually the part where I get more interested. Tell on. And he says, well, I know where I can get a hold of a heck of a lot of pre-war stock of genuine Radex and Radaway. Don't do me no good no how. But I figure that ought to be worth something to a smoothie like you. You gonna take the job for me or not? I'll only pay you off if I know Woody is safe. Just how much is a heck of a lot, we can say. And he says, it's a darn sight more than you'll ever need. That's how much it is. You gonna do it? Now we know exactly where Woody is. We met him during my episode on the den, though we didn't realize his name was Woody at the time. And if we're interested in a heck of a lot of Radex and Radaway, we can say, yes, I'll do it. I'll get back to you soon. In the meantime, we can peruse his goods. He has a decent stock, a 14mm pistol, and a whole bunch of 10mm shotgun and 14mm ammunition. He has around 840 caps to barter with and a stack of about 6 stim packs. If we inspect the locker in the back of his shack, we find a yellow key card and another box of food. Before we head off to the den, we can explore the shack to the right. Here we find a few townsfolk wandering around, and in the bookshelf, we find a book of first aid. Continuing north, we arrive in some sort of junkyard. There's a garage to the left. Inside, we find the scrap of a car, but it's ruined. It can't be repaired. Moving north, we pass a junkyard dog, a big rusty truck, and a tiny little shack. It's another outhouse, and it's empty. So moving right, we find an L-shaped farmhouse. The 2 rooms to the left and below are empty, but going around back behind the building, we find a door to the top room. And here we find a ladder leading below ground. Heading down, we find the entrance to an underground bunker. Or perhaps it's an abandoned portion of the pre-war Poseidon energy reactor. Passing through the doors, we find a bunch of ghoul guards. Join us and renew, they shout. Continuing to the right, we find a path south, a doorway to the right, and then a path north. Heading north first, a guard says, his sleekness wishes to see you. Okay, we'll keep an eye out for his sleekness. But this passageway is empty. So, retracing our steps, we can open the door to the right. A guard says, smooth skins may renew too. Okay, good to know. But this path is also empty. So, retracing our steps and heading south, we pass through another door. You too can renew, says the ghoul guard. Okay, we'll bear that in mind. Continuing south through the door, we finally find someone who has something to say. We see a larger than average ghoul. Renew, comrade. I am Zomak. Some call me Zomak the Destroyer. What is your business here? Okay, Zomak the Destroyer. I'm just looking around, we can say, and he says, you should look somewhere else, or Zomak will show you the stars. So instead we can say, I wish to renew. And he says, then you must see him. Him, we can say? Where is him? I mean he. And he says he is the granter of enlightenment. It is he that promises renewal to all who follow him. And we can say, well, I'm just about due for some renewal. Where is he? And Zomok the Destroyer says, well, he's right back. Hey, just who are you anyway? To get past this guy without turning him hostile, we can say, oh, don't worry about it. It'll be okay. I just have to ask him a couple of questions. And he says, well, in that case, come on in. He's right in the next room. Don't keep him waiting. So, heading through the door, we can turn right or left. All we find to the right are more ghoul guards. But if we turn to the left, we find a mole rat? We find him musing to himself. So many things pass away. Times are not what they were. And then he sighs. I feel that my sole remaining kin has died. Mad though he was, I wish it were not so. I had hoped that he might find some happiness, even in his dotage. And he's referring to the rat god. The rat god that we killed in my episode on the town of Klamath. He and his rats had infested Trapper Town, and we had to kill him to clear them out. But this guy seems to be a bit more intelligent for a talking rat person. And he says, well, enough of my sad musings. Are you ready to become one of us? You mean to become a giant rat, we can say? And he says, you humans have such limited tolerances. I would have remained a normal rat if you humans hadn't done your best to destroy the world. If it weren't for the radiation, I wouldn't be what I am today. And what's that exactly, we can say? I was just one of many normal rats in an advanced research lab. Then, one day, there were explosions. Our cages were broken open, and we were doused with some sort of fluid from a huge vat. Then what, we can say? And he says, I crawled outside. As I began to heal, I noticed that I had changed. I tried to communicate with people, but they all just tried to kill me. Humans are just too violent to survive under their own leadership, but that's another story. The first step is to repair the reactor. Repair the reactor, we can say. And he says, yes, you must get a hydroelectric magnetosphere regulator from Vault City in order to repair the Gecko reactor. If you don't, then Vault City will no doubt attack Gecko. Of course, by destroying the reactor, they will doom themselves in the long run as well. Doom themselves, we can say. How do you mean? In order to survive, he says, both Gecko and Vault City will need to cooperate. Vault City needs the power from the atomic reactor in order to expand, and we need Vault City's medical technology. Unless we cooperate, both cities will stagnate. Vault City needs to help us to repair our power plant. How are you going to get them to do that, we can ask? Our atomic reactor needs a part if we have any hope of getting it to run efficiently. What kind of part, we can ask? And he says, a hydroelectric magnetosphere regulator. That's the part that you need to get from Vault City. Then you need to bring it back here and get it installed in the reactor. How do I do that, we can say? And he says, well, once you have a hydroelectric magnetosphere regulator from Vault City, bring it back to the reactor. Then you can try to convince that pompous slug Festus to install the part, or use the repair robot to install the part, or you could even try to install the part yourself, of course. So long as somebody does it, we'll be all right. We can ask this guy, since he seems so wise, how do I get the part from Vault City? And he says you have to show them that it's in their own best interest to do so. People are easily manipulated through self-interest. And the Chosen One can say, look, I don't think the people in Vault City will give me a part for your atomic power plant. And the talking mole rat says, they'll give you the hydroelectric magnetosphere regulator if you can prove that doing so benefits Vault City. I have prepared an economic report that details just how much repairing our power plant benefits Vault City. I'll let our comrades here in Gecko know of your mission. That's great, we can say, but who in Vault City would even think of reading such a thing? And he says, I think that Mcclure is the only council member in Vault City with enough brains to see past his prejudices. He'll make sure you get what you need. And we can say, okay, I guess it's worth a shot. Where do I get this disc? And he says, you need to go up above, to the junkyard. Look for a ghoul named Gordon. He has the economic data disc that you need. You'll have my talisman, so he'll know to give you the disc. What talisman, we can say? And he says, the Ankh is a symbol of life. Once I give you this talisman, you'll be one of us, and your comrades will be more likely to help you along the path towards renewal. But be careful who you show it to. Renewal, we can ask? What do you mean? And he says, well, as part of my plan to rule the world, I intend to reward my ghoul followers by finding a way to restore their humanity. How are you going to do that, we can say? And he says, when I unite Gecko and Vault City under my rulership, I will dedicate Vault City's medical labs to finding a way to reverse the effects of radiation that turned the people into ghouls. They will be renewed, reborn as humans once again. That doesn't sound so bad, we can say. At this point, we can reject the talisman, but to continue, we can say, okay, I'll take your Ankh talisman. And the talking mole rat says, now you're one of us. Soon I will take over the world, and all of you will be renewed. We could kill him at this point, because he's a creepy talking mole rat, or we can live and let live and say, whatever. I guess I better get going on that atomic power plant thing. And with that, we finish our audience with an unusually large mole rat. At any rate, we've got the Ankh. Let's see if we can find a use for it. Inspecting it in our inventory, it says, this is a talisman which is worn by the followers of the Brain. Oh, really? We just found a mole rat who wants to take over the world and his name is the Brain? Okay. 90s kids will remember. Now if only we can find Pinky. Heading back topside, we can move east. Moving east, we find a number of shacks. We'll start by heading into this smaller one to the north. Inside, we find a man, not a ghoul. The game describes him as a very glum-looking human. Hello there, he says. Ever notice that each Brahmin has its own personality? Well, if you watch them as long as I have, you sure notice. That's really interesting, we can say. Who are you? And he says, well, my real name's John, but everyone around here calls me Lumpy. Why Lumpy, we can ask? And he says, well, it's sort of a joke. You see, they usually call people like you and me smooth skins, but I was treated so poorly by other smooth skins down in Vault City that everyone here figured I must be more lumpy than they are. Sound logic. Why were you treated so poorly in Vault City, we can ask? And he says, well, they said I wasn't human enough for them. I'm sort of radiation resistant. Perfect for here. But they didn't like it. Treated me like dirt. Really, we can ask? And he says, yeah, really. One day I just couldn't take it anymore. I figured that dying out in the wastes was better than living with those assholes in Vault City. How'd you end up here then, we can ask? And he says, well, a caravan from Broken Hills found me and brought me here. I've been here ever since. One thing about the ghouls here is that they care more about what kind of person you are inside. It's like a big family. After learning more about Lumpy here, we can ask him about all that junk in the junkyard. And he says, well, some of the junk is left over from when they were building the reactor before the war, but the rest of the stuff, I just don't know. Skeeter collects all kinds of stuff. When we ask him about Skeeter, he says, well, Skeeter's sort of a mechanic. He'll take apart almost anything that you bring him, gets most of them back together too, sooner or later. Sometimes things just end up working better than they did before. Where can we find Skeeter, we can ask? And he says, well, he's right here. Just open your eyes and look around a bit. Sheesh. Oh, great. Thanks, Lumpy. When we ask him about any town gossip, he says, well, mostly I just stick to my business. But sometimes I think I hear things late at night. Hear things, we can ask, like what? And he says, well, I'm not sure, mind you, but I think I've heard people, at least I thought it was people, coming and going from the reactor pit late at night. People, we can say? Every night? And he says, well, I don't know if they were people or what, but usually it's just every couple of nights. Noises coming and going from the reactor pit. I don't know what's going on, and I don't want to know either. We can say, you hear voices too? I always figure the voices are just inside my head. And Lumpy looks closely into our eyes. You hear voices inside your head? Do they tell you how much better you are than everyone else? Do they tell you that someday people will kneel before your greatness? And he smiles and nods. We can say, yeah, sure I do. Doesn't everyone? And he says, I kinda had you pegged for that type when I first saw you, but I wasn't sure. Get out of here, you friggin' nutcase. And the chosen one can say, well, one of us is a nutcase. I just think you're confused as to which one of us it is. Despite this exchange, we can barter with him, but all he has is booze, some rat-away, and a small amount of money. So now we need to find this Skeeter guy. Heading to the building to the south, we find a bit of a storage shed. There's a Dean's Electronics on one of the shelves, and a lockpicking kit in a locker. Heading into the next room, we find the proprietor of the shop, Skeeter, wearing old grease-stained clothing. But instead of greeting us with pleasantries, he quickly examines our bag. I see that you've got a mighty fine toolkit there. Snap-off, ain't it? I'll trade you this fuel cell controller for it, he says. Oh, well, that was handy. We got this snap-off toolkit from Vic's daughter Valerie at Vault City. And a fuel cell controller is the final part Smitty from the den told us that he needed to get the Highwayman working that was parked just outside his workshop, so that we can have our own functional car. Sounds good. It's a deal, we can say. And he says that's a mighty fine trade. You should be able to just plug that sucker in and get your car a-working. You know, I could do you another favor by fixing up some of your stuff for free, too. Really, we can say? For free, huh? What do I need to do for you? And he says, well, you see, I need a darn 3-step plasma transformer, and the only place I can figure to get one is from the supply room. Well, why don't you just go get it from there then, we can say. And he says, I kind of wore out my welcome there, and it was only a little fire too. Could have happened to anyone. Anyhow, they won't let me anywhere inside the reactor building now. I need someone else to go get my part for me. And we can ask, how do I get this plasma transformer for you? And he says, you's gotta get yourself a supply requisition form. Once you have that, just give it to Jeremy in the supply room, and he'll give you any darn thing you want. You can get supply requisition forms from Harold or Festus. Harold is in the settlement, as we know, we've met him already, and Festus, he says, is in the reactor control room, but we might have to kind of get the forms on the sly, if you know what I mean, he says. You mean I have to steal the requisition form, don't you, we can say. And he says, well, yeah, I guess so. You might ask them, but I wouldn't put your chances too high there. Well, we can say, I'll see what I can find out. Quite a handy little ghoul indeed. I like the idea of him upgrading our weapons, so looks like we need to go find a plasma transformer for him. And to do that, we'll have to go into the reactor. Before we do, we can open a door to his workshop to the right. We see a bunch of scrap on some tables. We can walk away with a crowbar and a sledgehammer. With the machine shop explored, we can move to the shack to the right. We see another ghoul. He appears to be preoccupied. This is Gordon, the ghoul that the brain told us about, the man we're supposed to present the Ankh talisman to. I see you have the symbol. Are you here for the information, he says? The symbol, we can ask, and he says, you wear the symbol of renewal. You are one of us. Renew, comrade, renew. Oh yes, I am one of us. Renew. And he says, did he send you for the data disk? And we can say, yes, of course I'm here for the disk. Hand it over, right now. Here it is, he says. But don't let the wrong person know that you have it. Give it only to Councilman Mcclure in Vault City. And we can say, yes, of course. Renew, brother. We now have the data disk, which should be exactly what we need to get the part from Vault City that we need to fix the reactor. Inside this guy's locker, we find a carton of cheesy poofs. I love cheesy poofs. And then we can inspect the Gecko holodisk in our inventory. The label on this holotape reads, Gecko Economic Data. It's difficult to interpret most of the technical charts, tables, and formulae here, but the majority of the information seems to highlight the advantages of a Vault City/Gecko alliance. Perfect. Exactly what we need. Now, heading north into the reactor, we see that this section of the Poseidon Energy Reactor was under construction when the bombs dropped. It wasn't finished. We see a big gaping hole, but nothing inside. So, heading out, we can begin to tackle some of our tasks. We'll start by heading to Vault City and showing this holotape to Mcclure. We were told to only show this to Mcclure, but we can check in with First Citizen Lynette to see exactly what she would say about it.
Yes? What is it?
I found out that all they need to get their plant running clean is a hydroelectric magnetosphere regulator.
So you haven't taken care of the problem?
As I understand it, you have the part here in Vault City to fix their plant.
What if we do? That is only a temporary solution. Please fix the problem, not their power plant. Am I making myself clear?
First citizen, I mean no disrespect, but there's a way to solve your problem without killing the ghouls or shutting down their reactor. Now, if we could just get the part...
I've had enough of your foolishness. You are no longer permitted inside Vault City. My guards will escort you to the front gate.
And with that, we either have to fight them or we're banished from the city. So, instead of talking with this cheery individual, we'll go straight to Council Member Mcclure. We met him in our last episode, and we find him right where we left him. Yes, he says, was there something else you wanted? We can say, I think you might have a part that could fix Gecko's power plant. And he says, what do you mean? And we can explain it to him. If I had a hydroelectric magnetosphere regulator, I could make their plant run clean. And he says, well, that's an acceptable solution. Stopping the radiation poisoning is all I care about. And we can say, yeah, but look, I'm worried that Lynette will withhold my citizenship if I fix the plant. And he can say, if you fix their plant, I'll give you citizenship. And there's not a damn thing she can do about it. Excellent, we can say. Where can I get the part? And he says, go see Randall, the chief amenities officer. He should have the part in stock. And we can say, there's one more thing. You might find this economic data disk interesting. And he says, I'm sorry, an economic data disk? What do you mean? And we can say, it's an economic data disk that shows the amount of energy that Gecko's atomic power plant produced before the war, and could produce again. Mcclure says, I see. So what does this have to do with me? And we can say, well, as I understand it, Vault City's power generator can only support so many people. In fact, it's already nearing its limit. And he says, I'm not going to ask you how you came by that information, but if it were true, what are you proposing? And we can say, once the Gecko power plant is fixed, the disk indicates it's possible it could produce enough energy for Vault City too. It looks like the reactor would need to be optimized first, though. And he says, are you suggesting we seize Gecko and take the power plant? I will not listen. No, we can say. If Gecko could receive the optimization data for their plant, I'm betting they would be willing to trade their excess power for medical assistance. And Mcclure says, as far as medical assistance goes, I'm not unsympathetic to the plight of the ghouls. They have certainly suffered enough, but how could we optimize their plant? And we can say, I don't know. Maybe there's someone I can talk to once the plant is repaired. And Mcclure says, I have no objections to your proposal. If you can find some means of optimizing the plant, then let me know. And we can say, all right, I'll go get that part from Randall and see about repairing the reactor first. And Mcclure says, I'll keep the economic data and study it some more. Perhaps I can persuade the council to enter negotiations with Gecko to trade for their power. The data disk would be a strong argument in of itself. All right, so we're certainly setting up a situation here that benefits both parties, but we have a lot of work to do. Heading south, we can go through the exit grid and then head to the amenities office. Here we find Randall. We can say, Councilor Mcclure said you'd have a hydroelectric magnetosphere regulator in stock that I could have. And he says, yeah, he said you'd be stopping by. Oxhorn, right? Wait 1 minute. I'll go get you the hydroelectric the high mag. All right, we can say. And he comes back a moment later. Okay, here you go. 1 high mag. Kind of looks like a lava lamp, doesn't it? Oh, don't drop it. It's pretty fragile. We now have exactly what we need to repair the plant. But before we head back to Gecko, we can take care of some of our Gecko side quests. We'll start by heading west towards the den. Then, going to the west side of town, we can pay a visit to the great Nyssa. We met and chatted with him during my video on the den that you can watch here. And in that video, we recall peeking into his sarcophagus where he showed us a genuine Egyptian mummy. But now we realize that it wasn't a mummy. In fact, it looked like a sleeping ghoul. And now that we know that Woody has gone missing from Gecko, the pieces fall into place. Woody went to the den, where he promptly fell asleep. The great Nyssa thought he was a mummy and put him on display. So after going through the great Nyss's presentation, he opens the lid and we see Woody. The chosen one can say, hey, wait a minute. That's not a mummy. That's a ghoul. Woody. Hey, Woody, is that you? And the mummy snorts, stretches languidly, and then looks at us with a sleepy blink in his eyes. Hello, he says sleepily. Holy crap, that is Woody, we can say. Run, Woody, run for it. Well, gimp for it then. Go, Woody, go. And we learn that Woody, for it is in fact Woody, not a mummy who stands somewhat drowsily before us, grabs the sides of the papier-mâché sarcophagus, lets out a shriek, and runs for the door, leaving a trail of toilet paper mummy wrappings and a hasty "thank ye kindly, stranger" behind him. And then we can gloat to the great Aninus. Ha! I knew it! You're finished in this town! You're not the great Aninus anymore! You're just another ass! But the great Aninus shrugs. I knew I should have picked up that mono-headed Brahmin instead. Oh well, back to the drawing board. A mono-headed Brahmin, we can say? Sure! Who would ever believe that? Goodbye, you charlatan! And with that, we rescue Woody. Now we need to go back to Gecko to get our reward for saving Woody, but we have one more task to complete in this town. Heading to the far western section of the town, we can head into the junkyard to talk with Smitty. First, we can give him the fuel cell controller that we got in Gecko. Then we can give him the fuel cell regulator that we got in Klamath. And once we give him both, he says, "You have both? Is that right? Well, here's the deal. You give me $2,000 and I'll sell you the car. Heck, I'll even install the fuel cell controller for you. Should run as good as new. I'll even charge it up with some extra microfusion power cells that I've got." If we have the money, we can say, "That sounds good to me. Here's the money and all the parts." The screen fades to black, and Smitty says, "Just take it easy with her till she warms up now." And we can say, "All right, I will. Thanks, Smitty." And we now have our very own working car. We just open up the driver's side door. And bingo, look at that. We can drive anywhere we want to on the world map. But I'm afraid I'm all out of time. In our next episode, we'll drive our car back to Gecko and do our best to fix and optimize the power plant. Hopefully then Mcclure will give us our citizenship so we can finally read the terminals inside the Vault City Vault. Then we can continue our quest to find a Gek for Arroyo before it's too late. If you don't want to miss the next episode, be sure to subscribe and to click that bell notification button. If you have and you feel like you're still missing out on YouTube notifications, consider following me on Twitter at Oxhorn. I update Twitter manually with every new piece of content that I publish. I have a shirt shop with completely unique designs that you can't find anywhere else. My designs come on shirts in a variety of men's, women's, and children's sizes and in a wide array of colors. You can find them on other products as well, like smartphone cases, pillows, posters, mugs, stickers, prints, etc. So if interested, you can find a link to my shop in the description below, or you can click here. If you like what I do and you want to support me in a more personal way, consider becoming a patron on Patreon or a member here on YouTube. But more than anything, I'm just so glad you're here watching this video with me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon with more brand new videos.